I was born and raised learning English, and despite knowing and learning it since I was 2 years old, I still don't understand it and can barely speak it half the time. Take Me Out has two different meanings. One is romantic and the other is deadly. The word run apparently has over 600 definitions. Depending on where you live, depends on if it's gray or gray. Words like this one can either be pronounced either or easer. Even our rules don't make sense. I before E except after C is just a weird rule. Nothing about this language makes sense, yet it is one of the most common languages to date. So today we're going to be doing a little lesson. I'll be talking about some idioms and where they come from, the origins of words, and maybe some more. Let's start with idioms, and one of the more confusing ones is break a leg. This means good luck. While I couldn't find the original origin of this, it does have a few potential origins. Possibility number one. When people performed, they would stomp their feet instead of applauding, and if they stomped hard enough, they would break their legs. Possibility number two. People would bang their chairs instead of applauding, and the leg of the chair could break off. Possibility number three. Actors believed in reverse psychology, like how in some movies when someone says, "This couldn't possibly be worse," then it begins raining. Actors would say, "break a leg," so they would make a flawless performance. Possibility number four. There's something in the acting business called the leg line, and this is where actors waited for their turn, which is just outside of the sight from the crowd. So when actors say, break a leg, it is them hoping that they break the leg line and get to perform, which is also how they get paid. It could be a mix of these, or all of these, or none of these. We don't actually know, like I said, but they're all interesting theories. From breaking legs, we're going to start breaking the ice. This is often said to try and relieve tension in the air or get people to start talking. Unlike many sayings in this video, we actually know why and when people started saying this. In 1579, people started saying break the ice, but it didn't mean the same thing. It was meant as forging a path for others to follow, specifically for ships and icebergs. At the time, ships would have to break icebergs with an icebreaker. People started saying it more, mostly in relation to this meaning, but in the 17th century, we started getting the modern saying, and in 1678, Samuel Butler wrote this phrase, "The orator at last broke silence and the ice." As the ice melts, it will begin raining cats and dogs, and for some reason this means that it's raining really hard. In 1651, a poet named Henry Van Con wrote this saying in his poem collection. While that could have been the first instance, the first popular instance was in 1738 by Jonathan Swift, and his satire was a character fearing it will rain cats and dogs. Other people were saying it's raining pitchforks and star rods, but Swift just stuck better. In 1710, Swift wrote a poem where there would be floods from the heavy rains washing away dead animals on the street. Just like a saying we'll cover shortly, people don't know why we specifically said cats and dogs. Etymologists, or people who study the origin of words, think a few different things. Possibility number one. Odin is the Norse god of storms and often seen with wolves or dogs, making them symbolize wind, while witches ride on brooms during storms and were often seen with cats, making them symbolize rain. Possibility number two. The Greek expression kata doxa means contrary to experience or belief, so if it's raining cats and dogs, then it's just raining harder than it is expected. Possibility number three. The saying comes from the Old English word katadub, meaning waterfall, so the saying could be referring to it's raining like a waterfall. Possibility number four. This possibility has been proven false, but I still wanted to mention it. Dogs and cats would hide from the storm by going into thatched roof and would be washed away in the heavy rain. But these roofs would repel water, allowing it to slide off, so the animal would have to be hiding it from the storm on top of the roof, which is not likely. While it is sad that dead animals were one of the possible origins for the saying, there is no point in crying over spilled milk. Crying over spilled milk is referring to being sad over the past, and while there is no confirmation on why specifically milk, one person theorized that it's because children would cry over spilling their milk. Regardless, the first instance we know of is in 1659 with James Howell collection of English proverbs, and it was originally "no weeping for shed milk." But since he was recording something that already existed, it implied that it is much older than 1659. Despite that, it traveled through time and people used different words such as Jonathan Swift's polite conversation in 1738. "'Tis a folly to cry for spilt milk," or Anthony Trollope's novel Castle Richerman in 1860. "It's no use sighing after spilt milk." Until recently, I didn't know why one of the most common sayings we have involves killing birds with stones. In 1656, Thomas Hobbes wrote the Questions Concerning Liberty, Necessity, and Chance, and in it he had this quote: "Th thinks to kill two birds with one stone and satisfy two arguments with one answer, whereas in truth he satisfies neither." Now I tried finding why we were killing birds with stones, but I couldn't find any reliable sources. So if you know why we're killing birds, then let me know in the comments. The last thing I want to cover today is Speak of the Devil. There's actually two parts for this saying, Speak of the Devil and he shall appear, but we don't use the second part anymore. The original purpose can't be traced back to the 16th century, and people were reminding others that if they speak of the devil, then he will appear, or something sinful will befall them. Nowadays, it just means that you're talking about someone and they appear. Similar meaning, but not exactly. Now, there are plenty of idioms I can go over, but I want to talk about some words that we use without thinking much about them, like calling shotgun. It originates in the 1700s West America. People traveling with riches and goods would often have someone next to them with a gun to protect them from animals and burglars. It would have died after that, and people would have moved on, but Hollywood saw this, and in 1979, they made it a key part in their movie Stagecoach. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. If you're learning about something new, then subscribe and check out this video where I talk about nightmare grounds. Speaking of nightmares, let's talk about it. The night part of nightmare is pretty self-explanatory. It occurs during night most of the time, but mare means a female horse. So, on a literal sense, nightmare should look like this. But mare also relates it to the evil spirit mare. It was believed that they would sit on someone and suffocate them at night, and this led to the person having nightmares. So the word effectively means after sunlight suffocation. Now this video does have a deadline, so we're going to cover one more thing, and if you're paying attention, you'll already know what it is. A deadline means the last moment you can turn something in, but the original meaning is a lot darker. In the 1860s, there was American Civil War, and there were prisons to keep enemies inside. Since these enemies were soldiers, they kept escaping by climbing the 10, sometimes 20-foot tall wall. This is 3 to 6 meters. So instead of having guards just wander around, they would assign specific regions to watch, and if prisoners tried escaping, they were shot. To help them mark who is and isn't escaping, they would make a line in the ground calling it the deadline. And if a prisoner passed it, they would be shot and killed. So yeah, a lot darker than our modern day, which is just turn this assignment in. While the origin is very sad, its meaning has changed to be more stressful than life-threatening. There are plenty of more idioms and words that I can cover, even slang like let him cook. If you wanted to see more, then let me know in the comments and what weird English words you want me to cover. And I'll see you in the next one.